This video was created by VinylicPuma of VinylicpumaGaming.
What's going on, guys? This is VinylicPuma, and today I'm back with another video, and I wanted to do something a little bit different today. I wanted to do a bit of an experiment, and I think we're only going to do one video on this game. If you guys like this video, we may do more, but ultimately, we'll just see how things go. So today, I wanted to go ahead and talk about a new game that came out called ReCore. And this game came out for Xbox One and PC, but you have to have Windows 10. And since I don't have Windows 10, I'm playing it on Xbox One. This is also going to be a is it worth the money, or kind of like my take on a review or first impressions of a game. So let me know what you think of this video, but let's go ahead and we'll get into it. ReCore has been marketed as a cross between Metroid Prime and Mega Man, though I think that's mostly because key developers from both franchises worked on ReCore. Now, in my opinion, it actually reminds me a little more of the recent Tomb Raider reboots and Rise of the Tomb Raider. The combat is actually a little bit more like Metroid Prime, where you lock onto enemies and you strafe around them. I actually don't really see that much Mega Man in this game. Maybe in the upgrade system, but even then it feels a lot more like Rise of the Tomb Raider or more like the older Tomb Raider reboot. I was also going into this game with some expectation that it would be an action RPG style game, but after playing the game for a little bit, it's more of an action adventure type title with some RPG elements. Now, like I said earlier, this is a game that's been released for PC with Windows 10 and is also on Xbox One. Now, the version that you're seeing here is the Xbox One version, and the game was published by Microsoft and was developed by both Concept with KG Inafune and Armature Studios. So in ReCore, you play as a character named Jewel, and based on my experience with the game so far, I've played for about 4 hours. The point of the game is to collect prismatic cores to unlock new areas and explore. And during your journeys, you will kill other enemy core bots and get their loot. And this loot can be used to research upgrades for your robotic companions called core bots to make them stronger. Each area has a set amount of treasures to find and collect. Some areas also contain platforming challenges, which usually involve activating these nodes, collecting a key, and getting to the end before the time runs out. Otherwise, from my impressions of the game so far, it's a fairly linear game with some exploration elements, and as I said earlier, it really reminds me of the recent Tomb Raider reboots. Now, ReCore is a purely single-player experience. There is no multiplayer or cooperative play. So the combat and weapon system is pretty similar to Metroid Prime. Just like Metroid Prime, you have 4 different beams. Now, unfortunately, they aren't named anything cool like the plasma beam or the ice beam or the power beam. And what I'm just going to go ahead and call them here is the red beam, the blue beam, the white beam, and the yellow beam. Now, the goal during combat is to match the corresponding colored beam to the type of enemy that you're fighting. And if you're not sure, since some enemies don't match the color of your beams, like some enemies can come in green color or purple color, you can simply keep switching beams and observe the damage numbers to get an idea of which is the right beam to use. The combo system also plays into the combat as well. While there isn't really any score-based stuff in this game, what you can do is if your combo is high enough, it affects how much damage you deal. So if you kill like 9 enemies, you can deal like 3 times the damage. So it generally behooves you to kill the smaller enemies and then go after the big enemies and try to kill them. What you can also do is if you get an enemy's health low enough, you'll get a prompt to extract the core, and what you do is you press the right stick, and then from this point on, you just play a game of tug of war with another core bot, and if you win, you get to keep the core as salvage. As far as the controls go, now, I usually play games on PC, and I tend to prefer higher frame rates for a lot of the games that I play. Now, the benefit of having a much higher frame rate is that the controls feel more responsive thanks to the less input delay. While ReCore would greatly benefit from having a higher frame rate so it could be more responsive, I would say overall the game controls pretty well. Platforming feels good and responsive for 30 frames per second. And I've also not had any issues with major input lag or frequent frame rate drops during gameplay. That's not to say that there aren't any frame rate drops during gameplay, it's just it's not crazy or all of the time. What does really impress me about ReCore is the size of some of the maps that you can explore. For those of you that have played Metroid Prime is a very corridor-based game. ReCore, on the other hand, has these really big outside areas, and as far as I'm aware, there are 4 to 5 different maps that you can explore, each with their own collectibles and prismatic cores. Now, it behooves you to explore some of these different areas to acquire new robot parts to improve your core bots. You'll also get the opportunity to acquire the loot that you'll need to research these robot parts as well. And really, in my opinion, ReCore's landscape and scale is really impressive. The only thing that really kind of ruins this game is just the rampant technical issues that really need to be ironed out. As far as all of these technical issues go, textures really need work. It really makes ReCore feel unpolished, and the really low quality textures hold back what is actually a pretty good visual design for the game. I've also had some issues with the game hard crashing on me and sending me back to the Xbox One's home screen, and I've only had this happen twice, but when it happens, it's a real pain because the load times are very long and it can take forever to get back into the game because not only do you have to wait for the initial title screen to load, which takes about a minute or two, but then once you enter your game and you hit continue your progress, you also have to wait another 1 to 2 minutes for that to load up. That said, the load times seem to vary. Some are quite long, like if you're in like a dungeon or something and you get killed by an enemy, I mean, you could wait up to like a minute or two before you finally respawn. But then in some of the large open world areas, you'll fall to your death, and then the game will load your character back up very quickly, which is kind of bizarre. Some of the animations for Jewel are also kind of goofy, especially when you're strafing at enemies and you're aiming at them. I mean, your legs seem to move, but your character almost looks immobile at the same time. It's kind of weird to describe, but it just looks weird to me. I've also had some issues with bugs with like a lack of clipping on some of the surfaces, where what I've basically done is I have jumped onto a surface and I fell through the surface to my death, or in some cases I've fallen through like walls and I can't get out of the walls, and what I had to do is I had to fast travel back to Jewel's crawler, and it's a real pain because along with the long load times occasionally, I mean, you'll fall through a wall and then you'll have to fast travel out and it takes a minute to get out of the area. Then you have to fast travel back to the area and it takes like another minute to get into the area, and it's a real pain. And maybe this enters like the nitpicking area, and I shouldn't expect this from a console title, but ReCore's resolution also appears to be fairly low as well. It's either 720p or lower, and while I prefer higher frame rates to higher resolutions, I really wish ReCore had a resolution that was 1080p or higher. Alright, so here are some of my thoughts so far on the entire game. What I will say is that I've enjoyed my time with ReCore so far, but you might not. I may take the time to complete ReCore on my own at some point, but ReCore is definitely not without its flaws, especially in the technical department for the reasons I just discussed. It took me a while to get used to the combat flow of ReCore. If you haven't played Metroid Prime, you'll occasionally have to go from locking on to not locking on in order to dodge certain enemy attacks. And actually you'll find that some enemies will charge at you and you can't dodge them and you get killed and you die, and it's annoying. Jewel really can't take that much damage at all. Usually one volley of blasts or a couple hits from an enemy will kill you. So you definitely have to be on your toes. Sometimes if there are a lot of enemies on screen, while I said that the frame rate issues with ReCore are, for the most part, actually it holds a 30 FPS pretty stable. The thing is that if there are a lot of enemies on screen, the frame rate does go down, and that does suck. I actually like the dialogue that Jewel has with some of the core bots and some of the other NPCs that you meet. That said, you don't get the same sense of isolation that you do in Metroid, since you're with your robot partner, and of course you're going to be talking to these friendly NPCs. And there is the possibility that if you're buying this game because it's like Metroid Prime, well, you're not getting the isolation that you get in a Metroid game. I also think that ReCore is a game that needed more development time. I also don't understand why both Armature and Concept had to work on the same game together. And I think if this game was given another year to iron out the technical issues, really improve those textures, and also increase the overall resolution, it would have really helped the design of the game. And I think ReCore could have been a great action-adventure platformer that was only on the Xbox One. And here's the final verdict. Is ReCore worth it for you to buy or not? Now, $40 is a decent price. That said, I'd let the developers take some time to patch the game. ReCore has a lot of technical issues that need to be ironed out. That's not to say that the game is bad or isn't fun. I think it is, but the long load times are really frustrating. Because, I mean, if you die, there's a good chance that you're going to have to wait 2 minutes before you can get back into the action. I do think if you're somebody that has played Metroid Prime and you like the recent Tomb Raider reboots, this is going to be something that you might enjoy. Now, is it as good as either of those games? Unfortunately, I don't think it is. Despite that, though, I think it might be worth it for you to try ReCore because the game is fairly fun, in my opinion. I would say that if you do want to play it, wait for it to go down in price a little bit, and by that time, they'll probably have fixed some of the technical issues. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care and I'll see y'all next time.